Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our ongoing series of webinars. As you know, Inflow Communications prides itself on making information available and just keeping clients and non-clients aware of what's happening in the industry. Thank you for joining us today after a long holiday weekend here in the U.S., and I sincerely appreciate your taking time out of your busy day. Today's topic at hand will be customer engagement strategy, developing relationship beyond the sale. And I think as we move forward into contact center and continue our dialogue with contact centers, so much has changed in the contact center space, and one of those key elements is the customer engagement strategy and what that really means. Before we get into our topic, let's talk about some upcoming webinars. This is a busy week for Inflow Communications this week, and we have 2 additional webinars. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we will be covering Mitel ShoreTel 14.2 to connect migration. So the migration path and really what to expect through that upgrade process. And then on Thursday, 2 days from now, you'll be with me again at on the 28th of May, this Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to be covering a fun topic, creative solutions using Genesys Cloud, the pure cloud product. So hopefully you'll join us for that as well. It is contact center related. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into our topic this week. By way of introduction, my name is Chris Riccio. I am the Director of Contact Center and Advanced Applications here at Inflow Communications. I've been in the industry 25+ years, and I've seen quite a bit of change, and it's pretty exciting where things are these days. And alongside with me today is a valuable member of our team, Luis Sauceda, who is a sales project coordinator. He's been doing that work for 7+ years. Luis will also act as moderator, and I will stop intermittently to ask for questions. So good morning, Luis. Thank you for being here today. If you'd like to say hello.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you enjoy the webinar today. Thank you, Chris, for the presentation as well.
Great, thanks so much, and thanks for joining me this morning. So by way of agenda, we're going to cover these topics. We're going to do a quick introduction on who is Inflow Communications. Most of you probably know Inflow Communications, and you've been receiving our updates, which is why you are here today. And then with today's topic, we're going to really dive into building the relationship beyond the sale. What is the real goal of customer engagement? We'll also take a look at customer engagement technologies. While it's contact center related, it does require at times that we look at the broader spectrum and what customer engagement means and how we can leverage additional technologies to tell our customer engagement story. Then I want to give you an outline and a thought process. Things to think about in creating your strategy. I've worked with a lot of clients, and when it comes to customer engagement, I see the 50-50 kind of mix. Some folks are still on the contact center mentality, agents taking phone calls and communications from clients, but customer engagement is really a much broader strategy. And so we'll hopefully give you some food for thought, and I pose several questions in helping you develop and create your customer engagement strategy. Then we'll take a look at some customer experience use cases in action where customer engagement is being leveraged to bolster the customer experience. And after all, that's what it's really about. Then we'll go through a brief summary, and then we'll finish up with Q&A questions and some contact information. So with that said, let's give you an overview of who is Inflow Communications. So our sole focus at Inflow Communications is not to attempt to be everything to everyone. However, our sole focus is on unified communications and contact center solutions. We like to really become experts in our craft, and it's through that process that we are solely focused that our entire organization is able to provide an experience for our customers I think is unparalleled in the industry. We have been and are currently a ShoreTel Mitel Platinum partner. We also partner with and facilitate the sale of RingCentral and, of course, Genesys Pure Cloud. We have other technologies that we also offer, but they're all unified communications and contact center focused. We have offices and employees across the U.S. in 10 different states. We support over 200,000 endpoints, and we have over 800 customers supported globally with the mainstay nationally, but we do have global footprints with many clients out into Germany, Philippines, the UK, and Brazil. And one of the things that you may know and you've heard us say, we are maniacal about customer service. It's the #1 mission in our statement. Customer service is everything to us, and our perceptions and presentations in front of our clients is critical to our ongoing success. We do have an 8 times faster response rate and an 8 times guarantee against our competition. Now, some of the names that the customers you see here are some pretty global recognizable names here, such as Domino's, Zillow, ThyssenKrupp, and Driscoll's, to name a few. We've got plenty more. Those are the names you probably know best. So let's get into today's topic at hand, which is customer engagement. And it's really about building that relationship beyond the sale. When it comes to customer engagement, I mean, the reality is that winning the customer is hard work. I know that everyone that's attending this session today has spent an inordinate amount of time massaging client relationships so that you can ultimately receive the sale and have an ongoing relationship with clients. That is a lot of work and effort put into that, and the focus for customers has really changed significantly. Customer retention is really critical these days, not only for expanding growth, but continued revenue. And that has really changed the dynamics of how we envision the customer to client relationship. Social media has everything to do with the impact of what's happening in the industry these days and why there's such a dramatic focus on the customer experience and, more importantly, customer engagement. Because word of mouth marketing can make or break a brand, and most people share their experiences liberally, either on social media or through some type of medium, it's important that you protect your brand and your customers' experience at all different angles. So word of mouth marketing has really changed the industry quite a bit with the onset of Yelp and the myriad of other places where you can do a shout out, a thumbs up, or a thumbs down. And the interesting thing I note about clients who voice their opinion, it's usually the negative opinion that gets a lot of airplay versus the positive opinion. And that's one of the things that you have to be uppermost in your mind in terms of the influence with your customer relationships. And that's sort of really what has changed the dynamic of the customer experience and customer engagement. So let's talk about customer engagement and the customer experience, because they are really one in the same. When it comes to working with your clients, developing relationships beyond the sale, the reality is that once you've secured that customer, you've got to start really working on the customer relationship. And we do that here at Inflow on a regular basis, which is likely how you ended up at this webinar. We have a big focus on nurturing our relationships. We want to know more about our clients, but in addition to providing great service and getting to know our clients, we want to always look for ways to create and provide ongoing value. The net result of having a focus on customer engagement and the customer experience and really getting to know our clients is that you're building loyalty amongst your value. Value can be interpreted in so many different ways, but it certainly extends beyond products and services that you might offer. The reality in terms of looking at market industry recaps and summaries of surveys is that loyal customers typically buy more. If you have a loyal customer that comes back to you, and I know from my personal experience, I will always continue buying and sometimes spending more, even for the services that I generically receive, because I get a better return on my value. And ultimately, I look at convenience and the level of effort that I have to go through in being a customer. And so loyalty is the number one driver. And with that in mind, loyal customers typically buy more. And I think the most important thing is that people are 90% more likely to trust a brand and to buy from a brand based on the recommendation of a friend, a coworker, somebody they already know and trust in their personal life. And this impacts everything we do, as it should. Certainly drives my life going forward. When it comes to ongoing customer engagement, the primary goal really is to humanize relationship. People are not commodities. Whether you're buying a car, a pizza, or something from Amazon, there is still the human element that takes place there. So building a customer engagement strategy is all about humanizing the experience and the relationship. One of the key pieces that your focus might be is, how do you build an ongoing relationship? How do you extend your brand beyond your products and services? And we're going to have some food for thought here in just a bit, because there's quite a bit you can offer outside of your products and services that could be impactful to the user. Ultimately, you're looking to create positive perceptions. Positive perceptions drive everything about the forward movement of that customer, the money they might spend with your brand, and as we noted before, a positive influence can impact the word of mouth marketing, as people are more than likely to trust a brand or buy from a brand that they've heard of or had a good experience or word of mouth from others that they might be a family member, etc. So let's talk about customer engagement technologies. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Expanding options outside the contact center, and I purposely put that there because for those of us who have been in the industry and you talk about contact center, we already know what are the pivotal pieces for any contact center solution. The traditional contact center obviously has the ACD technology. So whether you're on a Genesys Cloud, a TalkDesk, or a Mitel product, Ring Central, the ACD technology is sort of the fundamental building blocks for connecting your interactions with your agents or other processes. As part of that, you typically will have an IVR process, and this is sort of where things can be expanded and really extended. But in the context of contact center, we tend to think of it in these sort of buckets. Beyond the IVR, we start thinking about data integration and web services. And then when we're talking about contact center solutions in general, you usually have two choices, all-in-one solutions, or you have other smaller applets or applications or solutions that you can couple together. Now, I purposely outlined this in this manner just to give us kind of an overview. In my experience, most contact center solutions could benefit from having additional applets and applications, but this is sort of the base framework that most of us are working with, and I offer this so that you can think about the solution you're currently on and the pieces of the puzzle as they might extend beyond the traditional contact center. So that takes us into, when we're talking about customer engagement, there is a toolbox of processes and options that I believe are critical to really bringing your customer engagement strategy options, expanding your options, and bringing it to full fruition. Essential options, in my opinion, is that whatever solution you have, contact center or otherwise, should be SMS capable or provide a hook into an SMS or texting option with an open API. I also believe that having an email capable option is helpful. Now, when I talk about email here, I'm specifically talking about API. Email in general, whether you have Outlook or some other flavor, oftentimes gets subject to spam, and there's sort of a limitation. In this case, when we're talking about customer engagement, having an extended process to leverage email through an API can dramatically give you a further reach in processing power. It's the difference between sending 1 to 10 emails to sending 10,000 to 20,000 emails. Oftentimes, you need to have reliance upon an external API. Now, web services capable, I think this is a critical aspect for today's market, especially when we're talking customer engagement. Having a point and click, easily adoptable web services option within your contact center is critical, along with the capability to reach out externally to other API applications. The reality is that your contact center and customer engagement strategy is going to extend far beyond the typical contact center solution, and you'll need to leverage a multitude of services, as we'll see here in a moment on our next slide. Another critical option, I believe, is having a dialer or a campaign management type of processing, whether it's a traditional dialer, but this all comes down to data orchestration. If you have a CRM, such as a marketing CRM, and almost any CRM these days has the capability to either create a workflow, a work process, or a campaign so you can send out communication. These four elements that I've listed under essential options can really give you a well-rounded process with technology that allows you to really go in any direction when you start to envision your customer engagement strategy. Now, along with customer engagement, the piece that causes most people some consternation or pain is the concept of automation. Automation, I think, has to be part of your overall strategy. Here's the reality. With the growth at which people are adopting digital technology, staffing becomes somewhat of a daunting task, and that's the number one issue with any contact center. You're going to have to, at some level, to keep up with growth, and your trajectory is to engage in automation. And when it comes to customer engagement, there are ways to automate virtually everything without losing the human element. And we're going to talk about that. But automated technology, some of this you already have in your current solutions, some you'll adopt and add to your solutions, such as IVR, data integration, and web services. Usually we see those hand in hand as a total solution, regardless of what type of contact center you have. There's always an interplay between these three processes. Next is workflow management, a different sort of automation. Automation that is geared towards triggers, sending events, etc. I call this more along with data orchestration. In fact, all these fall under the category of data orchestration when we look at the big picture, but workflow management allows us to do very strategic and specific things based on the types of events and triggers that might be taking place. Now, bots, we've all heard about web bots and artificial intelligence. This is all about interaction management. As I mentioned a moment ago, staffing is always a critical aspect of the contact center. And while we'd like to have a human handle every interaction, it's not always necessary. Most of the folks that are coming up into the space now, and of course, I know everyone refers to the millennials and that sort of generation, but we're in a technological age. I think people expect a level of automation that extends beyond the human element. So bots and AI is factoring in heavily. We have web services integrations, I think, is also a critical aspect. When we start talking about customer engagement and automation, we really need to have accessibility to other data entry points. And I'm going to talk about some specific details here when we get into our use cases, but web services is an extension of the automation. And lastly, always have an opt-out option into a live body. Whether I said here opt-out options into ACD, what I'm really talking about is you always need to have a gateway, an exit path for your client to say, yeah, I'm tired of talking to this bot. I'm not getting the information I want, or I'm not getting the right details from this interaction. I need to speak with somebody. I think that's one of the most critical pieces. I think where people fail on automation is they don't provide an allowance for an escape hatch so I can get to a human. Now, customer engagement technologies, there are quite a few out there. What I've attempted to do here was list some very thoughtful, proven solutions that ease your customer engagement capabilities. With today's model, everyone is SaaS for software as a service. SaaS options allow us to really spring into customer engagement strategies without a lot of effort. Now, it does still require some effort, but let me highlight some of these options here. Everyone knows Amazon Web Services. They provide quite a bit of technology out there in addition to, what we know as Amazon for sales, online sales. They're kind of the powerhouse in the room. But they also have a backbone for hosting technology and serving technology in a true microservices environment or cloud computing, to make it simple. Some of the extended technologies offer bot technologies and automation. Also on the right-hand side of my screen, Google Cloud, my personal favorite. Google Cloud offers the same extensibility. And if you know the Google story, they've been around for a while. There are things they do exceptionally well. One of the things I particularly like about Google is that they allow an open source mentality. So if I contrast the two together, Google versus Amazon, Amazon sort of restricts you into their environment. You can actually do anything you want in Amazon, but I find it a little more nimble and easier in Google. There's less requirements for me. I can really do an ad hoc scenario. Twilio is another big player in the industry. For those of you that have ever interacted with Uber, Airbnb, Lyft, even Domino's Pizza, anything that has an automated communication via texting is likely driven by Twilio. Twilio is hidden under the covers of many contact center technologies, and it's probably the premier driving force behind customer engagement. Now, there's other applications that I have dabbled and played with and that we use extensively here. On the right-hand side is Zapier. Zapier is a workflow management data orchestration tool. What I like about Zapier is they have hundreds, if not thousands, of pre-canned integrations. So if I'm trying to do workflow management, I could extend my strategy by hooking in Zapier, who already has integrations developed. So you can basically point and click and get things rolling. On the left-hand side, Buildfire, as well as the right-hand side, Tray.io. Somewhat similar. Tray.io on the right-hand side under Zapier is also very similar to Zapier. It's about workflow management and automation. Again, the whole idea there is that you point and click to your integration and you're off and running. I like these options for one reason. It doesn't require me to spend a ton of money up front. I can actually do a trial account and see what options are available and then simply deploy what is helpful for my customer engagement strategy, and then you're paying just a monthly fee or annual fee at a very low cost. On the left, you have Buildfire and then also Zoho Creator. Now, these are two other options I included because along with customer engagement, we can't forget about the mobile phone user. And when I talk about mobile phones, I'm talking about mobile apps. What I like about these two is it lets you build a database structure that is really intended to facilitate the online presence by way of mobile app, and you can push those out easily. Again, there's work to be done with any sort of customer engagement technology that you expand to. This is just a smattering of examples that I find have one thing that I really appreciate: point and click to my existing integration or to an existing integration. They really help shorten the life cycle of developing a fully blown contact center or a contact customer engagement strategy. So let's talk about the customer engagement framework. Creating your strategy. What do you need, and how do I even arrive at what's the best option for me? I always say start with your brand. And things to consider about your brand is, who are you? What's your face of the organization? What services do you provide? And take it a little deeper, because you're building relationships with your customer. Do you have a mission statement? What is that core value of your mission statement? And how do you satisfy that through the things that you offer through customer engagement, support, or other services? What products and services do you provide? Because the products and services you provide likely will alter how you perceive customer engagement. And when we get into customer engagement, we're going to talk about proactive strategies. Um, Another item to consider is, why do clients reach out to you? Or is that something you track? Finding out why customers reach out to you, I think, is a critical piece of developing a strategic model. If, for example, if clients reach out to you on a regular basis, how do I turn this widget on? How do I augment this process in the software? Maybe you need more education. Maybe you could benefit from providing more education. One of the things that could be helpful in a tech support industry is take a look at your tickets. What is the most common ticket that arrived at? And is there a way to provide more support and services through an active customer engagement strategy? And is that, more importantly, is there an opportunity for proactive outreach? What it comes down to it, customer engagement is about getting ahead of the customer's needs, anticipating their needs, providing constant information. And we're going to talk about the fine line between constant information, but information other than a sales pitch. I think people are really sensitive to a sales pitch. So crafting your messaging and dialogue is critical. And if you can do it in a proactive way, this will help you get ahead of the customer. So here I've listed sort of a list of things that are commonplace on the left side, and on the right side, we'll go through some quick topics, right? So getting ahead of the customer. There's some easy things to ask yourself. Where are my customer cycles for service? Are there due dates as a result of the support and products they have? Are there renewals? Do you track customer requests, as I mentioned? Do you track non-product, non-service topics? Meaning, is there something that clients want to know about the industry? Are they trying to develop their own personal best practices? We find this quite a bit in B2B relationships. Is there an opportunity to educate? Education by far will help your customers take control of their own lives. And I've said this for years, when you're talking about customer engagement and contact center, you're not selling a product and a service. Maybe fundamental you are, but you're really selling control. How do you give the customer more control and knowledge? And you've heard this before, knowledge is power, but it also helps bolster the relationship. Too many times businesses will hide the knowledge because they want to, I want to say there's a little level of insecurity that if I give my customer the knowledge, they'll go somewhere else. That's not necessarily true. Customers will stay as you build loyalty and value. On the right-hand side of my screen, we have other ways that you might consider your customer engagement strategy. Do you have helpful updates about products, services, or releases? That's an easy one. But is there useful information that other customers have shared about how they've leveraged your product that other clients could benefit from? Don't be afraid to share successes. I think the more successes you share, especially coming from another customer, builds loyalty and perceptions. What about trending topics either socially, social media, or just community or industry related products? As we're talking about today, customer engagement is a huge trend in the industry, and that's what we're sharing today. Do you have industry and community updates and events, things of that nature? Now, what I want to say about customer engagement is that every industry is unique. While things may be similar, one size does not fit all. You really have to step back. And the best way I step back is I put myself in the customer's shoes. I come at it from a customer point of view when I'm trying to develop a strategy, whether it's any of these industries listed here. What events can enhance your communication needs? Strategically think about your industry, and these are just some things I've jotted down. For healthcare, the easy ones are appointment reminders, annual reminders, clinical updates. But I will tell you this, my doctor recently sent me an update saying, hey, you're due for your physical, but amid the COVID-19 issues that we're experiencing right now, we'd like to offer this instead. My veterinarian contacted me saying, hey, it looks like your dogs, I have 3 of them, your dog's licensing for their city license is due. So in conjunction with that, you might consider looking at your rabies shots and the things that are mandated. Finance and banking. I mean, the obvious ones are billing and notifications, but what about rate changes or policy changes or how to, hey, we have a new mobile app. Here's how you do this, how to do a mobile banking check, offering financial guidance and advice in terms of what to look for when planning 401k, things people don't normally transact at the bank, but things that would help educate. Technical support, the easy answers are software announcement, ticket updates, outage awareness, etc. But what about the education factor? How can you constantly help the customer think outside the box with the solution that you've sold them? Online orders, this is probably one of my favorite ones. Amazon and Domino's have a great story in that when I go to Amazon, I get notification my order's received, my order's shipped, my order's delivered, all the way down to Alexa has a flashing light so I can ask Alexa for notifications. Domino's has a great story. When I place an order through their web app, I get text updates. Your order's in, your order's out, your order's on the way. And then even 5 minutes after I'm eating, it asks me if I'm enjoying my meal from Domino's. So let's take a look at customer engagement in action and some use case strategies. But I'll stop here for a moment, Luis, to see if there are any questions at this point.
At this point, no, we don't have any questions yet.
All right, and I see that we're about 5 minutes left. I'll run through these. Fortunately for me, the key bullet point here is this one here. When we're talking about customer engagement, we're talking, there are many options for the customer engagement flow. We're all very used to the contact center. Activity comes in, it routes to an agent, et cetera. But when we're talking about engagement, engagement isn't just a one-stop process. And I have a feeling based on clients I've spoken to that it becomes a singular process. It's actually a multitude of things that you can do here. So it's a way to drive automation with your data. And here's an example of the data going into a process which then hits the user at their cell phone or email. This is just my example here, but the results of that can be varied. You can respond with a bot and artificial intelligence, I've noted here on the right, or you can respond and send that caller or the individual back through an IVR. Now, when we talk about IVR, we're very used to talking about IVR as a way to route voice traffic. But because IVRs have the ability to communicate with data, IVRs are being used to look at the response from a client via email or from a text and route appropriately or offer the appropriate services. Here's a classic example. You send out an appointment notification reminder and tell the client respond with a C to confirm, an X to cancel, an A to speak to an agent. Now, if you do confirm that, then you have other triggering mechanisms and workflows, but that's just an example of how you rethink the IVR instead of as a voice call traffic router as a data orchestration routing. You can opt out through the process here to speak to an agent, or you can trigger a workflow or a web service. So when I think about driving the engagement and the results of the engagement, there's no one way. It may be a combination of all these things. So let's get into our examples here. And the number one example we're all experiencing now is through the COVID-19 pandemic that is affecting us globally. If you've seen the updates and emails, probably every instance there's an offer or an opportunity to register for updates. So I do it via texting. I've done it with my city. I've also done it with CDC. So I'm getting announcements. This is probably right now the number one driver for having an effective customer engagement strategy. Now this pays for itself because you really understand what you're looking for in this case. You want updates, you want pandemic news, you want to know what's happening globally, but also locally with stay-at-home orders and restrictions and things of that nature. So this is probably the biggest example we have today. But let's talk about appointments and service reminders. In this case here, you can use customer engagements for those types of scenarios: healthcare, medical, dental, veterinary anytime you need to remind clients. There's also upselling opportunities, but in this case, I want to talk about marketing, not as a sales tool, but keeping ahead of your client. How are the services going? What's your general experience? Even if you do nothing more than reach out for customer engagement to get some general feedback, it doesn't always have to be about reselling the customer. Also, customer engagement could help impact your organization internally. I think this is the forgotten element. Many more clients who are looking to manage their client base want real-time notifications to account owners or account managers, or for those that have client success managers, as we do here at Inflow. One of the things that I'm seeing pervasive is that if a customer contacts the organization and there's a negative experience, it would be helpful to trigger an event that sends a notification to the account manager. Or if that customer is forced to leave a voicemail, getting that information moved around and not letting it just sit there. So the same rules apply, but you're applying it internally depending on what your specific needs are. And in this case, let's say an event took place on the right, you might want to notify the account manager for follow-up, or schedule an immediate call, or place an immediate call to the customer. Update the CRM with some relevant detail, or attach the voicemail or the call recording to the CRM, or trigger some workflows down below. Here's some other examples: customer updates and notifications. This one is about service tickets, providing updates on your ticket. Your ticket is open, your ticket is pending, your ticket has been escalated, things of that nature. There's also notifications about orders, provide an order status during, before, and after the order. Amazon and Domino's Pizza probably drained my bank account because of one reason. It's easy to use and I get constant updates. It's something that makes me comfortable. But even in that context, think about the branch off to the right. What can you do with that process? I do know that I'm working with bots in that case, but I do travel, and my call does, or my activity does, route through other processes. Here's another one: suspicious activities. I actually register for every bank, credit card, SMS update because I want to be alerted when something suspicious. I actually do not mind that I get quite a few notifications. It's about peace of mind for me. So those are another way. And in that case, I have come across a bot where I wasn't able to answer a call, and I responded with A for agent, and I was actually able to speak with a fraud specialist in real time. Local community events we talked about with the COVID, that's something that is happening now. And then lastly, probably a piece that's getting more and more traction is portable customer engagement. You have many customers out there who prefer to use an app versus a website. They want an app. Having the ability to interconnect your app as a customer engagement strategy with your backend for the contact center or other processes. Remember, we don't lose the bots, we don't lose IVR or the ability to get to an agent or workflow triggers at all by going mobile. But this is something that's become more increasingly popular, and more clients are requesting this because their customer base is looking for the easy option. And in that case, it's all about convenience and ease. So let's get into our summary. I realize we're a few minutes over. The whole purpose of customer engagement is to build your relationship, build your brand. You want to humanize the relationship beyond your products and services. People are not commodities. Your products and services perhaps are, but in order to maintain loyalty, you really want to build the relationship and make it personal. Get to know your customers. And I realize for those that have thousands of clients, that becomes a little bit different prospect than those of us who might have 800 customers. But getting to know your customer changes the dynamic. Also, extend your contact center outside the ACD with adjacent technologies and applets. I think there's a belief that the contact center is going to handle all those pieces. And I'm now working with more executives, C-levels, CEOs, operations directors, about helping them develop their expertise and the customer engagement story. And I also want to make this note. I'm saying customer engagement, but I'm aware in certain industries it's about the patient engagement experience. That in healthcare is becoming very critical. But look at the adjacent technologies. Don't be afraid to pull in other technologies, and I've highlighted some earlier in the presentation that are basically point and click technologies. Not everyone has a development staff in that regard, but look at adjacent technologies. And lastly, we've covered a lot of ground here. Start with the basics. Before you can do the whole gamut, pick one scenario and slowly move forward. Then expand your options. Customer engagement ultimately is the customer experience. How your customers perceive their relationship with you, whether it's about ease and convenience, is critical to the influence they have over gaining new clients. Remember, social media is driving everything about the customer engagement and the customer experiences, which has driven everyone to really focus on that. So with that said, we're 5 minutes over. I want to stop for questions or thoughts here. Any questions, Luis?
No, we don't have any questions.
Okay, great. For those of you that'd like to go into more detail and perhaps take a look at any of those additional options or smaller applications I mentioned, and by the way, I want to state this. The other applications I brought up, Zapier, Tray, Buildfire, we have no relationship with those. These are applications that I've found that have been helpful to help our customers extend that. So please don't feel that's a sales pitch on that regard. We're always happy to share our experiences, even if it means pointing to a product that we do not benefit from. With that in mind, you can reach us at 844-446-3569 or send an email to contact@inflowcommunications.com. Luis will funnel those to me. I'm happy to have any discussions with you pro bono. I've worked with clients from just a few minutes to a couple of hours, depending on their specific needs, and I'm happy to share that knowledge. With that, I want to say thank you for joining us today, and I appreciate you hanging on for the few extra minutes.